Phylloxera got to the Toro region in 1910, around 40 years later than Rioja and Ribera. The thing, it didn't progress because of the sandy soils. You know, the Phylloxera is a bug that bites the fresh roots at the beginning of the spring, and that produce such a damage that are like small balls on the roots that do not allow the assimilation of nutrients from the soil. So the vineyards die. Now what happens is that when you wake up in the morning and you'll go running on the beach, it happens exactly the same compared to the Phylloxera. So if you go, anyway, I don't want to go that direction.
Hello, wine drinking people. Time for a special edition of Wine Watch Television. We've got our special guest today, winemaker from Numanthia, Manuel Louzada. We've had a chance to break bread several times, and I've been a big fan of these wines since they first arrived on the scene. And even though Toro's been making wine for several hundred years, it wasn't until the late 80s, early 90s that, you know, the current generation of winemakers really got things going here. And you've been making wine in several parts of the world for a couple of decades now, and you're one of the few people that's made sparkling wine.
I'm getting old.
You made fortified wines, and now some of the world's greatest red wines. You made white wine, I'm guessing, also.
Yes, as well. Yeah.
So now we're just sticking with big reds. Just these three wines. That's all you do at Numanthia?
It's enough headaches. It's a small production. It's only 3 wines, a single grape variety on top of it, the Tinto del Toro. But at the same time, it's enough fun. Let's put it this way.
Termes, I'll tell you, this has been a brand that's on fire. It's one of these things that is an introduction to Toro, and people that love big fruity reds like California Cabernets, it's a great bridge into Spanish wines. People that maybe have never had Spanish wines before, but...
When I tasted the grape for the first time in the Toro region, the character is so massive that I understood why the wines from Toro used to be called wines to be eaten with fork and knife. And that was because by using the traditional winemaking techniques, you would get a lot of the character of the grapes that you had, or pretty much all the character that they had. And the wines were massive. Now, what we've tried to do with Numanthia, on the 3 wines, on Termes, Numanthia and Numanthia, was to try to get all that concentration, but at the same time with elegance. And that's what made the difference. That's why I think that Termes on top of that, which is like, you know, trying to take a picture of the sensations that I have when I'm visiting the vineyards, tasting grapes, following up the ripeness cycle. By doing that, by tasting that, you know, what I want to do is like a picture, try to capture the sensations that I have in the vineyard and try to have it in the bottle of Termes.
The Numanthia, 100% estate bottle, as is the Numanthia, and this is from grapes that are considerably older?
50 to 100 in the case of Numanthia. And the older they get, so here we have the freshness, the liveliness, and the vibrancy of the fruit. Here, 50 to 100 years old, you taste the grapes and it's like, wow, it's an explosion of fruit. So you're able to explore a little bit more, you get more concentration, you get more complexity. The aging already helps on that. Something that I did with Numanthia and Numanthia as well. Before being released, I leave the wine 1 year in bottle before going into the market so that everything gets integrated and all the complexity is there. It's
amazing how much it's opened up just in the 20-30 minutes that it's been open here. Some smoky characters coming out of it. Toro really has a more of a wild kind of character to it than either Ribera del Duero or Rioja. These are 3 distinctly different wines. I can tell you, you know, appeal to 3 different wine drinkers. The Numanthia, substantially bigger version of Termes, has got more earth to it. The fruit is a lot more pronounced than the Termes, and then the Numanthia is just another level of wine entirely. This is a wine you can keep for a long time. I don't know how long you recommend aging it, but it's good to drink right now. I think if you like big, fruity, again, California Cabernets, this wine has got a lot of richness. It's 15% alcohol, as are all 3 of the wines, right? The same pretty much alcohol ratio, and that's what you need to get grapes ripe in Toro.
Yes.
Because, you know, in order to tame those tannins, they got to be ripe, or it's going to be caustic in your mouth. Now, this is made from purchased fruit, 30% from your estate.
And the other way around, 70% for our estate, 30% of the, exactly,
okay,
purchased fruit. Actually, what we do, you know, when you have old vines in the region, what you try to get is a sort of a partnership with the owner of the vine. So basically, either we rent those 30%, or we have long-term contracts that basically we do whatever we want to at the vineyards, so that we have the profile. You know, when you make wines like this, it's not only a question of making an outstanding wine; it's a question of consistency as well.
And then once it becomes popular, you need to make more. So it's good to have friends with good juice close by.
Exactly.
So we can fulfill the need for Termes, and these wines are all 3 outstanding. You know, after making wine in all different places, you know, you gotta at the end of the year just go, wow, man, that was incredible. That's the greatest wine that I've ever made. Okay, which one wine would stand out to you, you know, of all the wines that you've made in your career, and say, man, I was most proud of that right after?
You know, I fell in love with Numanthia 2006, which was the first blend that I did at Numanthia, because basically there are 2 things that I've learned. One from my grandfather, which is responsible for me to being a winemaker. He used to say that that outstanding wines are outstanding always. Interesting lesson. And the second thing, that's something that I learned throughout my life, throughout my 20 years making wine, is that outstanding wines seduce you through your nose and give you pleasure in your palate. And Numanthia 2006 was the first blend that I did, and I fell in love with that wine. But afterwards, you know, we did 07, did 08, did 09. 08 was fantastic. On a blind tasting with the winemakers of the 30 best wines from Spain, it was picked up as the best red. Then 2009, warm vintage, 2010. 2010, you know, all the conditions were there to make an outstanding wine. It's for me an outstanding vintage, and probably the one that we have right in front of us, coming from these old vines of 140 years old, 120 years old vines that naturally have ridiculously low yields. You know, when I went to the vineyards for the first time, I was like, where are the grapes? Really? You know, it's like an umbrella. You know, the bush vines are like umbrellas.
How many plants would you be used to make one bottle of?
Well, it's almost 2 vines.
2 vines for 1 bottle.
And you only have...
most people talk about 1 vine per bottle, but you get 2 vines per bottle. Another reason why this could be the greatest value of any wine that's ever been rated 100 points. It should cost $1,000 a bottle. And like I said, if you love Spanish wines, you want to run out and grab all of these 2010s from Toro. Manuel Louzada, thank you very much for coming out today. Cheers. I'm your host, Andrew Lamposoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.